Update: I don't know how to help my wife's anorexia, which she developed after I blew our savings buying my mother a house. I talked to my wife Allie when I came down for Christmas after my mom's house sold, and based on what I'd been reading, I pushed the eating disorder thing a bit in my initial opening to the conversation. She just sat and listened to me. I told her I was scared about her starving herself, that she could die, that I empathized because I had an addiction too. Called her out on the pro-ana sites and lack of food. I don't think I'll ever forget her reaction after I finally shut up. She just laughed. This really cold and angry kind of laugh I have honestly never heard come out of her mouth in the almost decade I've known her. I literally just had a nightmare about it the other night. It was followed by her saying, "Are you serious right now?" She launched into what can only be described as an avalanche of anger and incredulity wrapped in a bomb. She ranted on for about 10 minutes. She said that in the beginning of the year when she'd left, she apparently got really into fitness and nutrition, and after a couple of months started training for a half marathon. She pulled up her calories in an app on her phone and gave it to me. They were all probably more than what I eat, mostly tofu, rice, beans, veggies, and protein supplements. Always over 2,000 calories a day. She told me that she'd worked her way up from nothing to going 10 miles a day. She loved it, but I was so engrossed in my own addiction and 12-step stuff that she didn't really mention it because she didn't want me to crap on that too, because I had a habit of not really saying much about her accomplishments. She kept that up all year until fall when she went back to SoCal. I didn't mention it in my last post because I didn't think it was pertinent, but I had a relapse in late September, early October. It spent a lot of cash we didn't have, but I guess I didn't really realize how that would affect her. She apparently couldn't afford to eat. She stopped training because she couldn't buy enough groceries to even eat enough in general. She started crying and practically yelling at this point and told me about how her stomach started growling during one of her classes loudly, to the point where another teacher came up to her between classes and asked her about it. I'll never forget, ever, Allie yelling at me and saying, "Do you have any idea how humiliated I was?" I felt, and still feel, like an absolute piece of crap. The pro-ana sites were bookmarked from early October, not in her recent browser history like I'd thought. She said she ended up there after Google searches had lended results that amount to just eat food when she literally could not. She said she felt disgusting and horrible even reading through those sites, but that they were the only things that got her through her classes without public humiliation. She said that practically not eating for a month was agony. The amount of guilt I feel is incredible. I asked her why she didn't say anything, and she said that after multiple conversations about money and begging me to budget, she finally gave up and just got her own bank account. She did bring up what was mentioned here, about my thinking of her as so strong and unbreakable and how much pressure that put on her. She was crying at this point more than yelling, saying how she lost her best friend to an addiction and how this hadn't been a partnership in a long time and how alone she felt. How the program was almost as bad as my addiction because it was the only thing that started to matter to me. I guess she had a point. I went to almost 2 meetings a day. It was like a second job. We talked a lot about all of this, but I eventually did convince her to come back to Oregon and work on our marriage. I made a big effort and got a new therapist too in addition to the one I had. We started counseling together. I hired a financial advisor and started to seriously budget. We bought a house with the profits from my mom's place. At this point, I really thought the update I'd be writing was, it wasn't anorexia, I was a jerk, but with therapy and love it's happily ever after. But I, of course, had to go and royally screw this like I always do. In my new therapy sessions, my therapist helped me realize that a lot of my issues come from a place of not knowing who I am. He gave me a lot of homework assignments, one of which was on who I thought I was supposed to be in a marriage and if that was who I wanted to be. I don't really know what happened, but I was so tired of feeling guilty and tired of feeling like I failed as a husband and just sick of therapy and everything. I was tired of working hard all the time emotionally. I missed my addiction. I missed not feeling so much responsibly. I was tired of strict budgets. I just fantasized about back when I was in college and single and none of it mattered. What I wrote on the page was raw and full of resentments I didn't know I even had and had a lot of stuff about Allie. I looked at it after I wrote it and it didn't even sound like me. It wasn't even true. I was just angry and hurt and feeling so much shame it was like I couldn't handle it anymore. It honestly disturbed me how ugly it sounded, because they were things I didn't know I even thought about. I left the paper on my desk and figured I'd look at it when I got back from work. Long story short, Allie found it. Allie read it. I came home with a note taped to it that simply said, "I do not deserve this." She's right. She doesn't. She moved everything she had to the office and divided rooms while I was at work. She even put a lock on the door. I sent an email trying to explain that I didn't even mean it but got no response. She literally didn't speak to me for 2 weeks and would walk out of the room when I came in. A week ago she sat me down and told me that since we just bought the house, we'd likely lose thousands in closing costs, so it didn't make sense to sell. I agreed. She told me that she was, however, filing for a divorce, and possibly going back to California. Then she left. It has hurt just writing this and remembering it, because I think I broke the heart of the woman I love more than anything. And she's gone and I miss her so much. She's back to not speaking to me. Half of me wants to beg her to come back, but I don't think I can keep any of the promises I have been making to her. I think I need to be single for a while and just focus on therapy. I don't know what's wrong with me or why I keep doing these things that hurt myself and others, but I need to get a handle on that before I think of tackling anything else. It cost me my marriage. It almost cost me my job. I think it's robbed my whole life. Allie seems good from what I've seen. Her sides of the fridge and pantry are filled with food and I saw her eating a giant salad the other day on the deck. So yeah, I think the eating disorder wasn't a thing, just something I clung to as not to have to focus on me anymore. I saw her the other day at the gym. This guy with bulging muscles was chatting her up near the weights and I thought I heard him ask her to dinner. She did that adorable blushing thing she did back when we were first dating, and I don't know what she said but I feel nauseous thinking about it. I hate myself. I want to hate muscle guy too, but I just can't.